Hi everyone, welcome to the Canadian Passive Investing Show. I'm your host 𝗖𝗽𝗶 𝗖𝗽 and I'm joined by my co-host August Biniaz. We have another great show for you today. Please like and subscribe as it helps us build our channel and allows us to keep bringing you great content and amazing expert guest speakers. Now, our mission is to empower investors to earn passive income through real estate investing. Today, we are joined by AdaPia, the beautiful AdaPia 𝗖𝗽𝗶 𝗖𝗽𝗃, my apologies. AdaPia is the Vice President of Strategy with Alpha Investing. She oversees Alpha's investing's growth strategy with an emphasis on investor growth and relations. Founded in 2014, Alpha Investing is a real estate private equity firm that offers workforce multifamily, single-family rental, senior housing, and affordable housing opportunities nationwide with a portfolio of over $1.7 billion with a B in property value. So August and I believe this interview with AdaPia will bring great value to both passive and active investors looking to learn more about real estate private equity firms, how they operate. Welcome, AdaPia.
Welcome, AdaPia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to have a conversation with you. Maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit about your background and your start in real estate, please.
Sure. So my background I know you probably have a lot of Canadian audience. So I'm originally from Canada, actually. I left Canada when I was 21. I went to Europe. I was in Europe for 11 years. And then now I'm in Los Angeles. I've been here for about 9 years, but I got my start working in a bank when I was 18. I was at CIBC in a financial advisor fast track program. Like I really understood that financial independence would allow me to have total freedom and empowerment, which are really important to me. And I've had a varied career. Even when I was in Europe, I was at a hedge fund, but I'm more in traditional finance. And I didn't really get into real estate as a full-on investor until 2013, when I was in Los Angeles and I got connected to the crowdfunding industry, and then specifically jumped into real estate crowdfunding as the CMO of one of the very first firms in the space called Patch of Land. So I essentially helped grow that firm. I was part of just launching real estate crowdfunding, fintech, et cetera. So that was how I first got into real estate. And even though with Patch of Land, it was on the hard money lending side, so more single family. It wasn't until I joined Alpha Investing in 2018 that I really got involved in the equity side. And so in a way, I feel like my whole journey with real estate investing has just been laddered in steps. And the further up I go, the more it's more complex, because investing on the equity side is more complex than, just doing hard money loans, let's say. But it opens up this whole world of opportunity for creating passive income and capital gains, and just part of a really, I think, sophisticated investment strategy, but also something that I'm really passionate about helping more people get into. Because at Alpha, essentially, we're just, we're a private equity firm, but we make these opportunities available to other investors. So the point is, we want other people to have access to what we're bringing in terms of sponsor partners and the deals that we underwrite. So it's not crowdfunding per se, but the whole idea of syndication and the essence of crowdfunding that I was really excited about when I joined was access and making things available and
democratizing
flow. And I'm from Canada. We don't get this in Canada. When I first learned about this, I was like, hold on, how come nobody ever told me that this was even an option? I knew about REITs, but even when I took my series licenses in the US, there was one page about REITs. So it's not like it's taught in the financial system here either. So anyway, that's a really just kind of the surprising turn of events for me. And I absolutely love being in the real estate space.
Incredible.
Amazing. And you know what? It seems to be a consistent consensus where people who are in the financial space and people who might be leaders or educators in that space somehow end up in the multifamily real estate investing, in that real estate private equity space. It seems to be a like what 𝗖𝗽𝗃 likes to call it, a true wealth building machine. And if you may, please talk to us about obviously your involvement with Alpha, and you're initially starting with crowdfunding, but what was it about multifamily that kind of excited you or turned on the light bulb that, hey, this thing is so powerful?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. So I had bought at different points in time, like individual condos in Canada. So I had one in Kelowna and I had one in Vancouver. So even though I didn't have a formal education in real estate, I knew, because I think everybody in the world knows that you build wealth through real estate. So I thought, I'm going to buy this apartment or this one condo, this one unit over here, because that's all I could afford, right? That's just kind of how it worked. And so that if you have something that generates income and it at least covers your mortgage, then you're building equity, and you maybe at some point you have some extra income if that's what you want. But really it's about the equity building, and you have an asset to sell and then you can do something with it. Or if you're thinking really long term, I'm just gonna have a few of these and they'll help me retire down the road. So that's how I initially went into it. I did not know that you could buy a whole entire apartment building, the whole thing.
A community.
Yeah, it's like all of them. And then I guess it's like simple math. Well, if you have 100 of those throwing off that kind of income, then, well, you could retire today, at the very simplest kind of level. So it's all about maximizing scale and economies of scale, because what it takes to manage one apartment or 10 vastly different than what it takes to manage 100. But then there's systems in place for that. You have property management companies. There's just so much that you can do when you build it as a business. So what I find fascinating about multifamily is that every building, in a way, and every acquisition is its own business plan. And it's run like its own business. And so if you take that mindset to it, then it kind of applies to the way that I learned. I went to business school. So I'm like, oh, it's a business. So everything is a business, and you can have a lot more fun with how to really maximize it, how to get the best returns, how to lower expenses. And something really important to me is, because those are investments in the way people live, as investors, I believe we have a real responsibility to be good investors, and that can mean good landlords. And so if that means improving conditions of living, like especially when we're doing affordable housing, like anything that we can do, because our environment, and through COVID, obviously this has hit home really hard, like where we live, our environment has a really big impact on our quality of life. And so I think that's another kind of a more on the softer side component, but that does play into investing in multifamily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned it's like a business. When I have conversations with my investors, I say it's like we're like buying a business, and I go ahead and I explain exactly what you just said. So I love that you touched on that.
And also the win-win-win trifecta that AdaPia just mentioned a few of it.
Yeah.
So you like to always talk about that, but go ahead. It's this concept of buying multifamily communities. Go ahead, Ava.
Yeah, buying multifamily communities. You got the people that are living in the community that are winning, because we're making it a better place for them to live. Then you were creating jobs for people, right, that are going in there and doing the renovations, which is incredible. And then your investors are winning as well. So it's just such a beautiful business to run.
Yes. And one more point on that as well. You mentioned about kind of the mindset and the common sense where economy of scale exists, but also when it comes to debt and when it comes to banks, when banks are lending on these larger properties, they also look at them as a business. So they are lending you on an NOI rather than they would do on single family or smaller multifamily, where it's comparable strategy that they use, the calculation they utilize. So we definitely love multifamily, but we're in the private equity space. We're real estate private equity. So that brings us to the next point here.
Yeah, I was going to say, AdaPia, raising capital is a crucial component of this business, right? So maybe you could talk to us about your experience early on, realizing the need to connect with investors. Like, how did you start connecting with people, and then, of course, kind of guiding them on these incredible alternative investments?
Right. I guess I kind of stumbled into it. I first started being in investor relations when I worked at that hedge fund in Switzerland years and years ago. And that was more formal investor relations. And I have good people skills. That's just kind of who I am. It never really occurred to me until until the crowdfunding, until Patch of Land. And I was the CMO and I was running marketing, but in reality, I was really running investor relations as well, because it was customer focused. So my customers, well, I had two customers. I had the borrower base and I had the investor base, but I was mostly focused on the investor side, and the borrower side was a little more sales oriented. So that's when I started to kind of put together this older, not older, but like former life that I had with the investing and the banking and everything, and kind of applying everything that I learned to investors, because we're asking them to trust us with their money. And so I didn't think about it as investor relations. I just thought about it as an exercise in building trust, and which is still how I think about it today. And so that was my baseline, is I want you to trust me because I'm trustworthy. We're, doing our best, and there's like transparency and truth and accountability. And there's a lot of things that go into it. But it's my role and my responsibility to give you all of that information so that you can make an informed decision and be comfortable. And if you're not comfortable, then, take a minute, take an hour, take a day. And maybe it's not ever right for you. And so it's never it's never a forceful thing. I just had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were kind of coming in, we were closing a deal, and it, pretty much like 11th hour, like we were just closing it. And this person actually asked me, like, what would you tell me to sort of like push me over the line? And I said that we're going to have plenty more deals. So there's no rush. And like,
Wow.
please, like, do not, I basically said, don't come into the deal if you feel rushed, because there's going to be so many more. And so I feel like, to me, investor relations is just about helping people feel confident that they're making the right decision, and helping them understand how to make that decision for themselves with information. So I guess it's kind of an organic thing that occurred to me that wasn't really, it wasn't like I went out on purpose. But today I'm like, yeah, I raise capital. That's what I do. But I've never really thought about it that way. I've always thought about it as the democratization of capital formation, access. And I get really excited about it because it's so amazing to see that cash flow come through, or when the sales come through and you have like a nice bump in the appreciation, like when you sell the business, it's like, gosh, that's really exciting. I want everybody to feel that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And your strength is really relationship management, and it all just kind of plays a
Right.
part. You want to help people, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You call it capital raising, but it's really like helping the masses.
Yes.
Kind of build wealth.
And I have to admit, I was doing a bit of research on you prior to prepping for the show, and I realized, like, I just know you as AdaPia, and we're connected on LinkedIn, and we had a few conversations about potentially collaborating. But then when I did some research on you, I realized that you're a superwoman out there. So
You are. You really are.
a lot of talks you've had, a lot of platforms you've spoken on. So talk to us about the kind of content creating, or kind of the speaking engagements you've been on, and all the other initiatives that you're doing when it comes to educating, particularly for women, and how that relates also to your capital raising endeavors. How do those two come together, and are they separate? Are they at one? And talk to us about that, please.
Yeah. I think they were a little bit separate. So for me, some of like the speaking and some of the stuff that I was doing initially was at a time when like, it was like in between. It was when I left the crowdfunding company and I was doing some consulting, and, and I wanted to do something else. And I thought maybe.
You were also an author as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, my book. But that book came out last year. That was just, I think I kind of started to try to write the book in 2018 when I was in this transitionary period, which is really what the book is about, was this transition from this idea of who I thought I was, really like successful executive, et cetera, and then having to completely fall apart and build myself back up. And so really that the book is like my journey of understanding who I truly am and how to come from an authentic place in everything that I do. And so a lot of that, like the speaking and some of the blogging that I did, and that all came in that period of time. but as I was going through that transition for myself, I also realized like I really like business, because I think what happens is a lot of people, and I certainly did this, I thought I'm either a business person or I'm a speaker and an author, and they're two different models of doing business. But what I really realized is I love doing business and I love investing and I'm really good at it. And I kind of missed it. And so when I joined Alpha Investing, which was in late 2018, the second part kind of my career really started then. And it was this integration of like trying to bring it all together so that it's not separate, because who I am is not separate from how I am and like how I relate to people. And that was maybe like the most important thing, is that inner journey actually helps me be a better business person, helps me be better with relationships, and therefore with the capital raising, which of course is sort of like the thing that happens because I care about people and because I'm honest and authentic. So that's just a long way of saying that I have done the speaking. I love to speak. I love to present. I don't know why I like being on stage, but I do. It really surprises me. I don't understand it.
You're definitely
Thank you. I don't understand it. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And then I'm just like, when it starts, I'm good. But at this point, in that whole kind of pulling together of what seemed like separate parts, I found the real focus for me, which has been my own journey with wealth and money, and judgments and shame and narratives and all the negativity that is out there about money and wealth, especially for women. It's a really hard one for women. And I found my purpose in sharing that for women to help them get to that financial empowerment, which I've fully embraced. And I want them to feel the way that I feel. And I'm sure, Ava, the way that you feel, like when we kind of like step into that power of wealth and what we can do with wealth, like what we can do with wealth is incredible. Yeah. And it's not something that is even closely related to just money. It's so much more powerful than that. And so I found my purpose in that. And so everything that I'm going to be doing going kind of forward is going to be around building a community of women and educating them and really helping them get comfortable with wealth building, and to some degree, financial management.
Incredible. And
Absolutely.
I love that you started your journey really stepping into yourself and being connected with yourself, because I think that's the most important part that people try to bypass. And then you can't really be good for anybody else if you don't have yourself aligned. So I just love it. I got to read her book, and yes, I would love to be involved with everything you're doing as much as I can, because I have a lot of respect for you, obviously, and you're doing some powerful things. So,
yes. And let's discuss Alpha Investing, the company, the brand, the platform. Now CPI, initially when we started, the plan was to be the operator. The plan, we in the trajectory of other companies, real estate private equity firms, and we're like, hey, we want to be the operator. But soon on, we realized that with all the educational content we were creating, with all the time and resources that was being spent on cultivating and nurturing relationship with investors, to then also be involved in making connections with brokers, underwriting deals, and doing site visits and physical inspections, and then to manage the properties at this stage for CPI Capital, it might not make sense. And so we decided to partner with active operators in the regions we want to invest into. And when we started that journey and kind of vetting the operators and in the regions we wanted to be in, we realized that this business model actually might be it might in a way be better than the other business. Not that we're not planning, we're still planning to be the operator as well. But what we realize is we're sitting back. We've already focused on the regions we want to be in. We have the operators that we've created partnerships with, but then they're sending us deals, and we're cherry picking the best deals that they vetted from hundreds of deals they looked at, and then the deals that make sense between all these different operators in all these different regions. Then we're presenting those deals to our investors. So this concept of being allocators or being co-GPs. So talk to us about your platform, Alpha Investing, and this concept of being allocators. How has that been? What is the future plans of alpha investing? Is the plan to continue being allocators, or is the plan to be the operator? And how has the feedback been with investors and the whole process? Talk to us about that, please.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, alpha investing is private equity firms. So we come in as sole or primary LP in the deals. So we have approval rights mostly on financial, kind of financial related elements. And really, we're just focused on picking operators that we can build significant long-term relationships with. So recurring capital. So with our partners, and we see them as partners, and we'll do recurring deals. So we have like 10, 15, 20 deals under our belts with some of our primary operators, the ones that are the most active. And so that allows us to really build a relationship over time that has a lot of kind of co-accountability, because if you can imagine, you do a deal once with an operator, if they don't want to have a relationship with you, are they going to keep bringing back deals? Are they going to be good deals? Are they only going to kind of give you the ones that nobody else wanted? So, really building that relationship is really important. So we're a sponsor first company. I mean, our role is to work with the best sponsor partners, and then we underwrite those deals. And then we bring what we consider to be the best risk adjusted deals to our network. And we have certain parameters that we know that our network of investors is looking for. So we don't do every deal that our partners do. I mean, they might be doing 40 deals a year and we'll raise 10. We'll raise on 10 of those ones. So we are one partner to them, right? Because it's important for everybody to have like diversification of capital sources, especially if you're an operator. So, that's really what we do. And we've been very strategic about picking needs-based asset classes. So multifamily, affordable housing is a subset of that, but that's in there. Senior housing. And then recently, one of the things that we're really focused on is single family rental portfolios. So it's also workforce housing, except instead of being one apartment building, it's communities of homes. So that's a strategy that for us we're gonna have a lot of focus on that going forward because of cap rate compression in multifamily. And just like a really quick statistic, in the US, 50% of multifamily is owned by institutions, 2% of single family rental is owned by institutions. And yet over 50, like it's about even with single family rental and multifamily rental in the US. It's about even. Like there's a ton of people. I know this is not the case in Canada, because that surprised me when I first moved here. I'm like, what do you mean people rent a detached home? I don't understand. I thought you only rented apartments. Like really, like I didn't know that. Here in the US, a ton of people rent detached homes. We call them single family rentals. So that's a big, gigantic asset class that is not yet that touched by institutional capital. So we have a very specific strategy there. That's more tertiary markets for us, secondary, tertiary markets. But we feel that that's an important way to diversify out of multifamily and
just on that point, how about build to rent single family? That's another.
It is another one. It's getting a ton of attention, and we're looking at it right now. We're picking up properties that need a bit of work up front, because institutions are not picking those up because they just want immediate cash flow. So it's a similar kind of value add strategy. We'll look at build to rent. Right now, the sponsor partner we're working with is very specialized in kind of like deploying almost like a little army of people that go into the markets that we choose, picking up a couple hundred properties, whatever it is, building a portfolio and then moving on. So yeah, BTR is getting a ton of attention because, building stopped in 2008 and it hasn't properly picked up, like building homes. So there's a true shortage of housing in the US, and a lot of housing stock in the US is old and in need of renovation. So that was a big theme when I was in the hard money space, because it's flips. It's basically flips. So then what happened is flipping became, instead of operators just flipping to sell, they would flip into rentals. So that was starting around, I was already seeing a lot of that in 2016, 17. And so now it's just exploding. COVID has been an accelerant of so many things that were already underway, like especially the diversification of markets. Like it's not just primary markets that are the good markets to invest in. I mean, there's secondary markets, tertiary markets are blowing up. So there's opportunity everywhere. I think that's really important, the diversification geographically as well, as long as, you're following job growth and all things being equal, that's strong there, because that's actually sustaining what we're seeing is just increased rental prices, and the demand is still there. So yeah, there's a lot of optimism, even though interest rates are increasing. There's a lot of inflation, all that kind of stuff, but the demand is still there, and there's still a shortage of housing supply. So yes, BTR is definitely something that we have our eye on. Currently, our strategy is in the acquisition and value add.
Got it. Perfect.
Incredible. Now, AdaPia, before moving on to the next segment of our show, please tell us, what is your number one advice to a passive investor looking to start investing in real estate private equity?
I think if you're an investor, when you make sure you speak to the firm. I know there's a lot of I was in it, crowdfunding. And the idea there is they don't want to talk to you. And so that can be okay if you know what you're doing, maybe because you know how to underwrite the deals and you're seeing it, et cetera. But we love, I talk to all my investors, they have my cell phone number. We don't have a 1-800 number. We're very available. And I think that's really important for passive investors is to do your due diligence on the firm that is doing the due diligence on the operator, because you're not doing the due diligence on the operator. I am, you are, like you, Ava and August, you guys are, I am, or my team is, but a passive investor is not. So they're by proxy needing to trust you. So I would say to a passive investor, you have to really do your due diligence on the firm that is presenting the deals to you and find out how they do their due diligence, and get a sense of them. Because if you're planning on deploying significant amounts of capital, you really want to build that relationship and that level of trust. So that to me is it's primary is try to really know who you're investing with.
Great
and
advice.
also their availability, their transparency, their
Yes.
promptness, all of these things, your gut feeling, if somebody's, not available. In our case, our CEO is available on a phone call basis. But great. Thanks. Really appreciate that. Now time to move to the next segment of our show. Let's have some fun.
The 10 championship rounds.
All right.
Whatever comes top of mind, AdaPia. First question is, who was the most influential person in your life?
Oh, wow. Probably my dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, what is the number one book you'd recommend?
Women Who Run with the Wolves. Every woman needs to read that book.
Okay, I've never heard of it, so I'm going to have to look it up. Awesome. Now, if you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh man, I would tell myself, you actually are creative and intuitive. That was a big part of what I learned with my book is you're not just an intellectual, kind of intellectual smart, brain smart in the sense, at school, you have a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. You're not just book smarts. You also have
That's
other
right.
capabilities.
Yeah.
What's the best investment you've ever made?
Oh gosh, the best investment that I've ever made was actually the single family home that I bought with my husband, Andrew, in 2015, that then we renovated and we sold it last year. That has been financially the best investment that I've made thus far. And it's actually allowed me to make all kinds of other investments. So in a few years that might have changed, but it really gave us the start.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made and what lesson did you learn from it?
I was defrauded for $250,000
Wow.
in 2013 for a private placement, not real estate. So that was the worst investment that I ever made by a long shot. And the biggest lesson that I learned there was trusting my gut, because I knew something was off and I was just too kind of ashamed to say something, not say something. There was like all this like weird stuff going on, and like a lot of like kind of like psychological games that he was playing, and just real bad. And so I really learned how important it is to trust my gut, even when sort of facts and diligence check out, but something wasn't checking out that I couldn't put my finger on. So that was a big lesson there about partners and trusting my gut.
Were there litigation proceedings after that?
Yeah. Yeah, he actually, there was a criminal case brought against him by the state of California because he also defrauded a state charter school. And I actually got my money back.
Oh,
Great. Well, we've learned about
After 7 years. I mean,
Yes.
it wasn't just, it doesn't happen. I'm
Yes.
just beyond grateful, miracle that that's a whole other big story about about how that happened and what I learned just about myself, and the energetic journey that I went on to work through a lot of shame and not wanting to face it and letting it go only to have it come back. Like, it's the wildest story.
And forgiving yourself, what Ava
Oh,
told me is
so
I'm very hard on myself, self-critical,
Yeah.
and Ava just says learn to forgive yourself. But also the lessons you learn
Yeah.
from that bad experience is very helpful, I'm sure, for your current journey as well. But with us, just on that point, is that what we realize, Americans don't mess around. The justice system in the US is very strict. And in our situation, we're dealing with Canadian compliance and US compliance, so it makes things even more difficult. So we're on constant conversations with our securities and corporate lawyers.
yeah. Yeah. That's, I would say too, like, get a lawyer. I didn't have one. I was like trying to do it all on my own. So that's another thing, is like the whole, like, get a lawyer, like ask for help, like so important to like get a second, to get a second opinion on things that might be big and that might not feel right.
Amazing. All right. How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
I've always had this number for me. It's 10 million. Because it's more than just retiring and money in the bank. It's like what that will generate and what else I can do with that. Cause I love investing in like startups and female founders. And just like, to me, it's like, that's the number that would allow me to be even more, not successful for me, but successful for other people. So that's my number.
I love that.
The abundance mindset and the value add mindset. So we love it, and we love to participate at, for sure, Ava. I'll participate somehow as well. Great.
100%.
Okay.
Now, if you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Man, when I was little, I always thought like Julius Caesar for some reason. Maybe it's like my Italian background.
Italian background.
It's like that. And I can't think of anyone else right now that I would want to have. Like, that's just the first thing that popped into my head. It's like still that this person that was, to me, just like so very, very, incredible. Although I could also maybe see myself wanting to have dinner with some like one of these quantum physicists that are doing the work that they're doing today. It just blows me away what they've been able to find out about how the world works. So I really love that stuff.
Like Dr. Joe Dispenza, maybe.
Joe Dispenza. There's God, what's his name? 𝗖𝗣𝗜 has like, if you listen to this man describe how things are made and all of it, how time works, it'll rattle your brain so much that you'll never be the same again.
Yes, I love all of that.
I'm on total kind of self-exclusion of being on any of these rabbit holes about any of this stuff, because as soon as I get on it, it's hours and hours and days of YouTube and stuff. So I'm very focused on real estate, private equity. That's all I watch the videos about. All the podcasts, all the literature I read is only about that.
A friend of ours, him and I try to kind of plant seeds on August mind. Yeah. So it's lots of fun. All right, next question. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
I think I would be doing exactly what I'm doing. Took me a long time to figure that out and to accept that I really love what I'm doing. And when I did accept it, then the world just opened up for me to do even more, because I lead with my heart in what I do. So I don't think I would really do anything different.
Perfect. Now, this is my favorite question. Book smarts or street smarts?
Street smarts.
Okay.
Wow, that comes from an
AdaPia.
educated person to hear that. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Okay, last.
Without a moment of pause.
Yeah, sure.
No.
Okay, last question. If you had $1 million cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
Bitcoin.
Oh wow! Look at that!
Whoa.
Look at that!
August likes that one.
All right.
Sorry, there's so many investments out there, but if there was like one that really I think is going to be so important, it is that one. And because I have a pretty good portfolio already of real estate, so I'm like real strategic about
Diversify. Diversify.
Yeah, diversify. Yeah.
Awesome. AdaPia, what is the best way people can contact you?
Come find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Amazing, and we love your Frenchies back there. You
I'm so loud. Sorry.
Oh, we can see them. Actually, one of them is making a
Yeah,
cameo right now.
that's I've been rescuing Frenchies for a few years. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much
for coming. Really appreciate your time. We know you're busy. You're truly a thought
my
leader in the
pleasure.
space. We'd love to also get involved in your initiatives that you're putting together, all the educational items. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, AdaPia.
Thanks for having me.